come on down. This is about networking. So, before we start, you're going to need your phones for this. So, you might want to get out your phone. We're going to do a little test. And the test is, you're going to pick a card, and all you have to do on your phone is write, like, Jack of Diamonds. All right? So if everybody does that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make your card disappear. But before I do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the companies we work with. They're all large, very, very large, and some very, very small. And they use our services because we help them sell their products. And that's really what I want to show you today, is how do you use social networks to make sure that your ICOs work. So that's what we're going to do. But let's take away your card now. Did I get, whose card didn't I get? Okay. Did I get everybody's card? Of course. And there's a couple people that know how I did that. All right? And in the art of pre-suasion, you only have to shift people's focus for 7 seconds. And if you do that, you can then put in their mind things completely different. Now, for myself, I started this journey in social networks back when Al Gore was talking about climate change. And go back to, and he's still talking about it, but the excitement was real strong. And I was working for SAP, a large accounting firm that sells software, and we couldn't compete because there was too many people selling SAP software. So we wrote a piece of carbon accounting software. And at that point in time, we were the very first one. Within 6 months, there was 40 or 50 of them. Now there's about 150 that sell carbon accounting systems to keep track of your carbon footprint at a corporate level. And what happened is, I'm an accountant by trade, but I had to change what I was doing because I couldn't sell our products, right? So we said, let's write this piece of software. Let's become experts in carbon accounting. And the next thing you know, my son, it was actually my 19-year-old son, said, Al Gore just brought into Facebook. If you get him to like your product on Facebook, you will, guess what? You'll be experts. So Al Gore didn't like it on Facebook, but some of his people did. And 6 months later, we sold our company to Fujitsu for a lot of money. And then I had to step back and say, what am I going to do next? And that next piece was to help companies figure out how to communicate using social networks. And if we go back in time, there was, the learnings from that was, you can't have all the messages that you have. You've got to get it down just like our current president did. He got his messages real simple. And most of the messages in this space are too complicated. So what are your 2 or 3 simple messages? We are now into, just as Trump did, is who are the buyers of this? And how do you get at that data to make sure your buyers understand what it is you're selling? And then they see that message over and over again. Focus. You can't afford to educate the industry. And most of the ICOs today are trying to educate the entire world. There's actually a very select group of people that will buy this. And so, again, focus on who those are There's something that's hit the market that if you haven't heard of it, it's called social selling. And it was made famous by LinkedIn. So they took their 600 million users and said, there's a way that we can social sell. And what I want to do is I would just want to explain some of that today. Of course, you've got to measure it and replicate it. Everybody knows Jeffrey Moore, or some of you are probably too young, but Moore's Law, which is everything was going to double. He recently came out and said, actually, what's important now and the scarcest commodity is intimate relationships. How do we get close to a very select number of people as we're being bombarded by social networks? And to do that,
now about the mind influencing, it's kind of interesting. We're going to try to do something with the entire audience. Okay. I got it. Okay, so let's do a circle. A circle, show everyone.
This way, like this.
Yeah, simple circle, big circle. You know what, in fact, let's ask the entire audience to do a circle, a big circle. Can you do this? Let's do a big circle, but don't do anything yet, just a circle. Now, if this works, I will be in shock. So we'll do a little warm-up.
Okay.
Most people, when you ask them to draw something simple, most people will draw a smiley face or a house or a tree. This is the most common things. Now, to give you an example of something a little bit more complicated, for example, I mean, if you ask me, I would draw like the Superman sign because I love Superman, or maybe
like on your ring.
Yes, it's my ring, exactly. Or maybe if someone is religious, he might draw like a cross or something like that. I don't know. I'm just giving you a few examples. Like a mountain is a good, a strange-looking mountain is a good idea. Or maybe, no, or maybe like a, I don't know, like a rabbit or something like that. I mean, everybody can draw different stuff. You have something, don't say it. In fact, when I'm talking about drawing, everyone here is trying to think of their drawing. You can never predict what you're gonna draw. So here's what's gonna happen. Harry, you know what? Stay where you are. Can you join me for a second? Come with me. Come with me. We did all those drawings. Come with me over there. Dear audience, please stand up. All of you stand up. Now, do you agree that everyone can draw anything they want? I just gave you an example of a Superman and a rabbit and a cross or a crazy mountain. So anything can happen, anything can do. I want everyone, when I say now, listen carefully, you're gonna do your drawing, okay? By the way, don't draw a bunny, don't draw a hat, I hope it's not one of those. It's not one of those? One of those? I hope so. And when you're ready, you're gonna do your drawing and hold it close to your chest. So not even your partners can see. You're gonna do it as quickly as possible. Look at me, take a deep breath, everyone. Do your drawing now, quickly, and hold it close to your chest. Listen carefully. Did I tell you what to draw? No. Did I give instructions to you to do a specific drawing? No. This is from your choices, correct?
Yeah.
Correct. It's really from their minds.
Come on, man.
You know what? Turn your drawings now. Look at this.
Wait.
Look at this. Oh my, I am in shock. But you know what's the beautiful part of this? That I managed to influence 200 people to do the exact same thing. I will give you a little hint. Look at the band. They're all doing this stuff. Harry, come here. The way I did it was a subtle influencing because this is not a Superman sign. This is an S. This is not a cross, this is a T. This is not a mountain, this is an A. And this is not a rabbit, it's an R upside down, which gives us a star, which is exactly what you thought of.
Now, his work is actually based off a professor out of Arizona State University, Robert Cialdini. Robert wrote a book 10 years ago called Pre-suasion. And he rewrote the book 2 years ago because he found out it wasn't persuasion, but it's pre-suasion. It's the things you do beforehand. And he found out that there are some things you can do on your social network, on your LinkedIn feed, by the right pictures, by the right comments, that will impact people's decisions. You will pre-sell them what you're doing. So an example of that, we all want to have ourselves set up to do a favor. And we come in and you accomplish a task for someone and the they say, that was really good, thank you very much. Now, if you're going to persuade that person to owe you something, you don't say, no, thanks, it was nothing. You simply say, you would do the same thing for me. And subconsciously, that sets in the back of their brains that they owe you a favor. Now, that can all be applied to what we are saying and doing on social networks. And let's look at how that works. So you need a simple message. We talked about that. And this is not going to work for all the people you go after. Basically, 30% will get it, 30% won't, and 60% you can probably convince. The ones that you're not going to get are the ones that ask their spouse, what's happening on Facebook this week, dear? Those are not digital people. They're not going to be susceptible to it. It's the people down here, most of you that spend a lot of time in technology. So what does that look like? On LinkedIn, that looks like what they call the SSI score. Does anybody know their SSI score? Nobody. Okay, this is a measurement of your influence. So if you're not above 70, you're not going to reach very many people. And we'll come back to that. If you're on Twitter for work, who's on Facebook at work? Okay, they released it a year and a half ago. Not many people. It's the new communication channel. If you have your phone open a new browser window, go up and type in LinkedIn SSI score, and choose this link right down here, and that will take you to this page where you can get your score for free. If you don't go this route, you have to buy LinkedIn Sales Navigator. All right, and if anybody has a higher than 90, come and see me afterwards because you can use our service for free. Okay, what LinkedIn tells us from their data is that if you use the methods I'm going to talk about, you have a 78% advantage over your peers that don't, or over your competitors. And what does that look like? Is when you're selling technology, computer software, marketing, advertising, that means that 67% of your buyers are actually doing 74% of their research before they contact you, before they think of doing business with you. So that's a huge advantage. But if you're not there, and you can't be found, and you don't look professional, it's not going to matter. The rest of these statistics really point out that bots are going to be the new gatekeepers from you getting to the investment people, because they're going to screen the transactions. So as we go forward with software, you can go in and we can tell you exactly what keywords will get their attention. Now what we do is we take all the information on LinkedIn, we dump it into IBM Watson, and Watson comes out and says, these are the keywords, and these are the persuasion phrases that will get their attention. Because the average person, when they're scanning a LinkedIn feed, only sees 3 words in each, as they go through each person's. And it's usually the first and 2 towards the end. And that's just human nature, because we don't read anymore, we only scan. So how do you do this yourself? Well, first of all, your best leads are actually not sitting in this room. They're sitting in the startups in the industries you're trying to penetrate. So we heard earlier from Don about the energy industry. And these are all tracked by CBS Insights. If you go here to the ICOs that they also tracked, they break them out by industry. Now here's how you get to the people that are going to buy your coins. So we'll take our first speaker this morning, all right? And he's got a lot of connections, right? But you see where it says on his profile, see those connections? That means his security settings will allow me to take every one of his connections, and 3 weeks later, I can take them again, I can measure the difference and see who he's talking to. And those are probably your best prospects. Those are the people with money. Those are the people who are doing things. Now imagine that you can do that on everybody, all those 40 that announced their ICOs today, all because they didn't have that setting wrong. And what happens is I then go in and look at his connections, and I see that there's 380 of them that are posting monthly on LinkedIn. So if I can get them to post my material, to persuade them, all of a sudden I've got a whole new audience I didn't have before. Because these people are probably talking, and they're talking about the subject that he was interested in. So what does that look like? The path is the software runs, it grabs all this information, it creates a message that's persuasive, it runs, and then you get yourself a download of that. And how that looks from the software perspective is it works real easy. It works while you're sleeping. Because the fact of the matter is you can't spend your time doing this. You've got to be out talking to people. So what it's doing is going out, it's running these tasks, it's looking at their profiles, and if they look back, it sends them a message and says, thank you for looking at my profile. I see you're interested in ICOs. Perhaps we should connect. And that's a soft connection. You're now in their feed. And that's all you can do. And then you've got to give them the right information. And in the very end, you will come up, it'll show you a nice spreadsheet. From that spreadsheet, you're trying to move them over to the new communication channels. So for instance, you can see what this is basically saying is WhatsApp is where personal communications are taking place. And there's some real easy steps to take them over there, because what happens is when these little red dots go off on our phone, we get this little chemical reaction in our brain, same as cocaine, that says, I should look at that, I'm important. And WhatsApp has a 98% open rate versus emails, which is lucky if you get 10%. So this is how we do that. Is you move them from LinkedIn in here, and it all becomes automated. Now, here's what's happening. Has anybody heard of GDPR? Okay, we got one in the background. Basic two. All right, basically the European Commission has come out and said there's new requirements, and you have to take care of people's personal data. And if you don't, there's a 10 million euro fine or 4% of your turnover. So once it's on the blockchain, you don't have to worry about it. What you have to worry about is what's happening inside your business. Because this is the perfect storm where we're taking data, we have more data than ever about people, and we're mixing it with technology. And that technology mix
I must admit, Dad,
is
I never get used
very
to seeing you like
dangerous.
this.
Because you have
do
people
not
working
understand.
inside your company, you have
You are
contractors,
constantly working on similar
and
electronics.
they are sending emails and storing things in the cloud, and you have to go through a process because most of the U.S. corporation believes you're going to get fined. And you guys are all selling your coins worldwide, so you're all accountable. And the majority of CIOs think that's happening. You have to guarantee the people who have that you have data on that that they can be forgotten. That you can they can call you up and say, what do you hold on me? And I want you to forget it, or I want you to correct it. And if you have a data breach, you have 72 hours to notify, or you're subject to the fine. This is a huge task. You can come up with it. There's companies out there that sell like the quick access to that. But if you're going to use the internet to sell your product, you have got to be thinking about GDPR, because it will bankrupt a large number of organizations going forward. And when they release this in May of 2018, they are going to be looking for people in each sector to fine. So don't be part of that. So what do you have to think about is, for GDPR to work, you've got to educate your executives. Everybody has to know what the problem is and how they're supposed to handle data. How do you collect it? What do you do it? What was the purpose you collected it for in the first place? Because if you can't define that, and you're holding data that you don't have a purpose to hold for, you will be fined. You have to have a rule book. And the rule book says, salesman, this is what you have to do. This is how you have to behave. You can't store things on your hard disk. They can only be stored in these places. Because if someone does call and say, I want to be forgotten, you have to be able to have traceability to say, that disappeared. And your contracts. You can't have complicated contracts anymore. It means that they have to be simple enough that if an average person, now that's a 8th grade reading level, if they can't understand your contracts, you're in violation. So I'm signing up on your newsletter. I'm going to do this with your data. And when I finish it, I'm going to do this. Do you understand it? And all your existing contracts have to be rewritten, is the basic process behind that. So think about your LinkedIn profiles. Think about all your social media, and do you look professional? Do you have a picture that shows the warmth of yourself? Because obviously a picture is the first thing they see, and we as human beings read faces. And when we walk into the events like this, if we've looked that person up, we remember them in the back of our mind, and we have deja vu. Do you have your phone numbers on there? Do you have your contact details? Can I even tell what you do? Because you've got to be found. So if you don't have, so when LinkedIn's looking, or when Google's looking at a LinkedIn search, it looks at your name and then it goes to your title. So if your title doesn't tell me what you do, LinkedIn's not going to find you. So think about taking keywords for your industry and what you do and putting it in that title. And lastly, how do you engage? Don't sell. That's the last thing you want to do. You want to give them insight to their industry, not insight into ICOs, but an insight on how this will impact your industry. Because they don't think about, when they're scanning feeds, they're not thinking about you, they're thinking about their problems. And the average person only scans for 3 keywords at a time. So, thank you very much.
I need to go.